Hello guys, welcome to our ethics keyword series, and today we are going to discuss a particular keyword that not only finds direct mentioning in the syllabus but also UPSC has been asking questions continuously, right? That makes it very important. And the keyword that we are going to discuss is your emotional intelligence. We are not only going to understand the definition of it but also will try to understand the components, we'll see some of the examples, and most importantly, we'll see some UPSC questions as well. Okay guys, before we dive into emotional intelligence, we have to understand the functional word in emotional intelligence, and which is your emotion, right? So we have to understand, we associate negative connotation, we associate a kind of negation with respect to emotion, but that should not be the case, because it is not an idiosyncratic impulse. Emotion is not an idiosyncratic impulse, but it is one of the most important tool or critical source that significantly impact your attention, learning, decision making and health, right? It provides information which impacts your attention, learning, decision making and health. How it does, for example, let's say in case of attention, so emotion highlights those important significant information that you should be keeping in mind, right? So it helps your attention. In case of, let's say, in case of learning, emotions, like it drives you, it motivates you. For example, let's say that you have a particular disposition, you have a particular emotion towards mathematics, right? So it motivates you to do what? It motivates you to do a deep learning in mathematics. Then it also helps in decision making, because why? Because emotion is that particular tool or is that particular instrument that aligns information, right? It aligns your various information, various facts that helps you to take particular decision. And most importantly, it helps you in your health also, because it has a deep psychological effect on your health, right? Okay guys, now we have understood emotion. Now let's come to emotional intelligence, that particular word which features in our syllabus. This word was in vogue in 1950s and 60s, but it found its mentioning in 1985 in a doctoral dissertation. But it was made popular by whom? We very well know, by the psychologist Daniel Goleman. It was made popular by the psychologist Daniel Goleman when he was researching on emotional intelligence and leadership. So guys, I would like you to watch this 40-45 seconds video where he is going to talk about his particular investment of time in emotional intelligence and leadership.
When I wrote the book Emotional Intelligence, a lot of people had an aha experience, like, oh, so that's what's going on. It was the first time that for a popular audience, emotional intelligence had become well known. I was a science journalist at the New York Times back then, and I'd been covering a decade of research on the brain and emotion. And I wanted to have a frame for that. I integrated it with the findings from research on outstanding performers. And I saw that people who emerge as outstanding performers or the best leaders have high emotional intelligence. So from the get-go, I've seen emotional intelligence as having to do with leadership. And this was taken up by the Harvard Business Review. They've done a series of articles, starting with one which said, look, emotional intelligence is the core of effective leadership.
Okay, so we have understood what he was trying to say with regards to emotional intelligence and leadership. We will understand that, but before we go into that, let's understand the definition. And we have to quote verbatim this particular definition, because each and every word in this particular definition carries a meaning and is important, right? Emotional intelligence is also termed as emotional quotient. Both are the same. Is defined as the ability. Now this is very important, ability. A UPSC question has come from this, only one word, ability, right? Ability to perceive, that is to see, observe, detect, use. Once you have observed it, you have to use it to your advantage. Understand what kind of emotion it is. Is it jealousy? Is it envy? Is it hatred? Is it anger? Is it love? Is it compassion? So what kind of emotion it is, right? To understand. Then finally, this is the most important thing, and this is something which takes years, manage and handle that particular emotion, to manage and handle that particular, that is the objective of your emotional intelligence, to manage and handle. Now, once, as Daniel Goleman has said, once you are able to do this, it shows a sure shot sign of leadership, right? So EI is described by Daniel Goleman as a core effective leadership and a key trait found in an outstanding performers, right? Performers in the sense like people who accomplish their task, takes up responsibility and is accountable towards their task, right? Goleman has seen that this particular value, emotional intelligence, right, is found in that particular leader, right? Is found in that particular leader, right? And another thing you have to understand, unlike your IQ, so IQ is relatively stable, right? If somebody has a, let's say, 120, 130 IQ, right, it is relatively stable, right? But your EQ, that is your emotional intelligence, or EI, your emotional intelligence is learned and learnable at any stage of life. Right, it is learned. So like at the age of 50 also you can develop. So it's never too late to understand, to learn, right? To understand and learn emotional intelligence. Daniel Goleman himself has categorized or structured this emotional intelligence into 4 domains and 12 specific competencies, right? So what does your emotional do? It built in competencies, right? When UPSC asks a question that how does emotional intelligence helps an administrator, you have to keep all these 12 here. Here we have mentioned all these 12 competencies in mind, right? This is how emotional intelligence helps the IS officer or an administrator, right? But what are the 4 domains? There are in some places there are 5 domains also, but because it is coming from Daniel Goleman, we'll stick to 4 domains, which are the 4 components rather. First is self-awareness, then comes self-management, then social awareness, and finally relationship management. And like we'll understand each and everything. The first and the most important is your self-awareness. Now, what does it mean? It means that it involves recognizing your emotion and their influence on thoughts and action. It is inward, it is individual, right? You have to recognize what kind of feeling that you are going through, what kind of emotions that you are going through, right? That is the first step. That is the first step. And their influence on thoughts and actions, right? That what kind of that particular emotion, what kind of thought it is triggering, what kind of action it is asking you to do, right? So this is the reason why this is the foundation of your emotional intelligence, and it helps you to diagnose your emotional state. What kind of emotion? So you have to look inward. It helps you to diagnose the emotional state, and if you're good at it, okay, now we'll come to the second most important. Again, this is very inward. Again, this is a very individualistic. So first was that you have understood, you have made yourself aware of that particular emotion that you are going through. You're angry, you're feeling sad, or you're feeling a bit despondent, whatever it is, like that you have aware of it, like what you're going through, right? Once you are aware of what you are going through, then comes that management, then comes the management, right? It focuses on internal regulation, right? It focuses on internal regulation, and most importantly, this two, just see, these two are very individualistic in nature, right? First, you are letting yourself be aware of what you're going through, and then you're managing it, right? Then you're managing it. And what are the competencies you will develop if you do this? If you do this, what kind of competency you will develop? So you will be able to handle the emotions in a very better way, prevent negative association with an emotion. So you will have a positive mindset, a very important value or a very important attitude for a bureaucrat when he is facing or she is facing hurdles. And again, very important, agility, because you are aware, you are managing your emotions very well, right? You will be agile in taking decisions. You will be very quick in with changing situation. You will be very quick to adapt to that particular situation. And finally is that you will be goal focused, because you have managed your emotion, you have directed your emotion towards your goal, right? So these are the competencies. So if UPSC asks that emotional intelligence, how does it help a bureaucrat, right, to perform its task or perform its function, right? Then you directly come to self-management and you can mention these 4 competencies, right? Handling emotions, positive mindset, agility, goals. And this is from the horse's mouth. This has been said by none other than the person who has made emotional intelligence famous, that is Daniel Goleman. Now we will move on to the third part. Now from individualistic, we will move on to the societal level. So social awareness. The first step was what? Self-awareness. So first we manage ourselves, right? Once we have done that, then we move on to the society. Society is nothing but is a network of interrelationship, right? So if I am participating into that relationship, first I have to be stable. Once I am stable, then I can understand. So I can understand or study the society. So social awareness is nothing but understanding others and the broader societal context, right? And here the most important value, and we'll be discussing this particular value also. The most important value, guys, and in your answer, it should feature is empathy. It's empathy, right? So in social awareness, the most important tool to engage with the society, as I have said, society is nothing but what? It is a network of relationship. Now you have inserted yourself into society. Now you are engaging in this particular network, right? And what is that important tool that helps you to be focused and helps you to engage in this particular network? That is your empathy, right? So cognitive empathy. First is cognitive empathy, that is understand others' perspective, right? Whatever others are saying, debating, arguing. So first of all, you keep calm and understand what they are trying to say. This understanding, this cognitive faculty or cognitive empathy comes from what? From your social awareness, right? Then comes your emotional empathy, right? What others are feeling, what pain they are going through, so for example, in case of people who are being removed from their homes because of some infrastructure that is being built or some dams that has been being, right? So because you are part of society, you have to understand what kind of emotional turmoil that they are going through. So this is your emotional empathy. And finally, empathetic concern, like you should be genuinely concerned about what those people who are suffering, both like suffering in the sense societally and individually, right? Now we'll come to the most important part, that is your relationship management. Relationship management, it is the most important, and this is one of the most toughest. It is the toughest of all the domains. So it is managing the interactions to influence and lead effectively, right? As I have told you, society is nothing but what? It is nothing but a network of relation, right? So in this particular case, you have to manage that interaction between various networks or various individuals, right? And if you are doing that, right, how you are doing that? You are influencing them, you are inspiring them, you are motivating them, probably you are coaching them, and you are also managing conflicts, keeping calm, managing conflicts, leading them, listening to them, resolving their issues, right? So these are the competencies that you will be building when you are focusing on your relationship management. So again, guys, let's reiterate the four domains. The four domains are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. Okay, guys, now we have understood the domains of emotional intelligence, the competencies of emotional intelligence. Now, as Daniel Goleman has said, that it is a learned process. Like we can learn emotional intelligence, and we'll take the step-by-step process of, it's called a ruler process, how we the best way to learn emotional intelligence, right? The very first step is what? The very first step is your recognizing an emotions, right? Identify that yes, there is an emotional turmoil there, the person is being emotive, and not only within you, it has to be not only within you but also within society, right? So identify emotions in self, that is within you, your body and your thoughts, and others as well, right? So once you have identified, yes, that particular person is emotive, then what do? Then you understand that particular emotion. What is the reason why that particular person or you being emotive, right? The cause of that particular emotion, right? The causes is very important, cause of that particular emotion. Once you have understood the cause of that particular emotion, then the most important step in this 5-step process is labeling of that emotion. Is that particular person envious? Is that particular person jealous? Yes, these two are different values, right? You have to label that particular emotions. The moment we have labeled that particular emotion, right, then we can then we have to express that emotions. We have to express it appropriately as per the context and culture. Now this is very important. We have identified, okay, this particular person is very angry, so I have to express it in that particular manner, in a very calm and composed manner, right? So what you have to do is that you have to regulate that particular situation. You have to regulate the emotions that within you as well as in that particular person, right? So this is the step. These are the 5 steps of learning your emotional intelligence, right? And it takes time. It does not happen that I have seen that particular steps and I will become an emotionally intelligent person. No, it takes time, right? And hence it is called the ruler model because of the first letter, right? The first letter, right? Recognizing emotions first, understanding emotions, then labeling emotions, expressing emotions, and finally is regulating emotions both within you and in others. Okay, now let's see some of the examples, right? One of the brilliant examples of how an IS officer or a bureaucrat used emotional intelligence to take proactive step and ensure good governance is Dr. IS Rajendra Bharut from Maharashtra. Now, what he did, he recognized a community fear and vulnerability, right? He was socially aware. Remember, social awareness, right? Is part of one of the domains. He was socially aware and anticipated escalation. What was the escalation about? During the second wave of COVID. During the second wave of COVID, he knew that there will be huge demand of what? Huge demand of oxygen cylinders. So what did he do? Beforehand, he had taken a step of building oxygen infrastructure before a crisis peak, right? Many districts could have done, but they did not. But this particular IS officers had taken such proactive steps based on what? The emotional intelligence, the social awareness that yes, if there is a moment when there will be deficiency of oxygen, right, there will be panic, right, and hence I have to take steps beforehand. So this is a classic example of emotional intelligence. Let's see the second example. Okay. The second example is IS Om Prakash Kasera, right? There was during COVID, what happened? There was a huge outflow of students, right? And that is the moment when he maintained his composure. He managed himself well, like self-management was required. And he did what? He not only helped the students, but also he helped around 50,000 students. He helped around safe evacuation of 50,000 students, addressing their mental health via psychologists, right? Let's see the other examples. And one of the most important examples, okay, another important example will be your IPS Chetan Singh Rathore, right? So what did he do? He used emotional appeal to disperse the rowdy crowd. There was a protest which was going violent and volatile, right? He used national anthem. He started singing national anthem and displayed classic case of emotional intelligence to disperse the crowd, right? So these are the very core examples which you quote, if you quote in your answers, right? Such precise examples. You have to quote such precise examples. That will elevate your marks. Now let's see some of the quotations that is associated with your emotional intelligence. Now Warren C. Bennis, what did Warren C. Bennis say? Warren C. Bennis said that emotional intelligence, more than any other factor, more than IQ or expertise, accounts for 85 to 90% of success at work, right? We know that, like, we often quote that 90% is your emotional intelligence and 10% is your intelligent quotient, right? So this we can name the personality associated with it. It is Warren G. Bennis. Then your Amit Ray. Now he said, this is very important. Like, artificial intelligence is in the news. You can be expecting a question on artificial intelligence, and why he's saying that emotional intelligence is becoming a rarer commodity, and it will become a sought after commodity, because he says that as more and more artificial intelligence is entering into the world, more and more emotional intelligence must enter into the leadership, right? So in this particular case, emotional intelligence becomes one of the core component in leadership when artificial is flooding into the world, right? And last but not least, a person who popularized this concept called Daniel Goleman, he said IQ and technical skills are important. He's not negating it. He said that yes, IQ and technical skills, they are important. Of course, like if you're working somewhere, you need your IQ, you need your technical skill. But emotional intelligence is a sine qua non of leadership. Right, sine qua non of leadership. That it in order to lead a team, in order to make sure that you achieve a goal, achieve the vision and the mission of that particular institute organization. Yes, technical expertise are important. Yes, your IQ is important, but emotional intelligence is a very important component in a particular leader. Okay, now let's see a question that had featured in 2017. It says, how will you apply emotional intelligence in administrative practices? We have seen three examples. We have seen IPS Chetan Rathore. We have seen Dr. IS Rajendra Bharut, right? We have seen such examples. We can quote those examples, how they have used their emotional intelligence to take proactive step in governance, how they have used your emotional intelligence to make sure that the crowd disperse, or make sure there is to cull the law and order situation in a particular district, right? So emotional intelligence played a very important role to not only make sure to take proactive steps and improve governance, but also to take preventive steps from with regards to law and order, right? So you can quote such 3 examples. And with regards to arguments, you can mention which argument, the social component of your 4 domains, right? Which are the social component of the 4 domains? Let's see. So these are the social component, right? Social awareness and relationship management. You can mention that yes, there are 4 domains, but in this particular case, the 2 most important component here is social awareness and relationship management. And here you can mention about cognitive empathy. You can mention about your emotional empathy, right? Influence and inspiration. These are the ways how influence persuasion is used by officers to make a constructive social changes in that particular district, right? So that particular question could have been answered easily from this particular infographic. Okay, now remember how we began our class. We began that emotion is not your idiosyncratic impulse, right? It is not your idiosyncratic impulse. It has to be studied. It has to be understood. The moment it is studied, the moment it is understood, it not only helps in your health, it helps in your knowledge information system. It helps in memorizing things. It helps in decision making, right? So that particular question, this particular question could have been answered from the first slide that you have done, right? Emotional intelligence is the ability to make your emotions work for you instead against you. And how do you make emotion work for you? By studying it, by assessing it, right? By understanding what is the genesis of the emotions, right? What is the quality of the emotion? What is you have to label it. What is the distinctive feature of that particular emotion? This particular question could have been easily solved if you have done if you have understood, right, what is the genesis of emotion, what is how you label that particular emotion, right? Now, this is the direct answer, right? What are the main components of emotional intelligence? This was asked in 2020. Can they be learned? Of course, they can be learned. We have understood the process, the ruler process, right? What is the ruler process? Let's see. So this is the recognizing emotion, understanding emotions, labeling emotions, expressing emotions, and regulating emotions. The moment you write this, the moment you give this infographic and you give these arguments with probably an example, right? Like you will be getting excellent marks. And the the first part of the question, what are the components? Just mention these components, the 4 components, right? These are the individualistic components. These are the individualistic component, right? And these are your societal components. So what are the components? Self-awareness, self-management, individualistic component. Social component is social awareness and relationship management, right? This, you write this with the examples. We have seen 3 examples. There are more such examples we will be taking up in the class, right? So the moment you give these examples, the moment you give such arguments, right? These are very precise arguments. UPSC does not want you to become pundits of emotional intelligence. UPSC wants that you should know what emotional intelligence is, and you have to apply, and you should know how the application of emotional intelligence. That is what your UPSC wants, right? And this particular diagram, right? And along with this particular diagram, this ruler model will help you to write that particular answer. Again, this is a bit difficult question. It was asked in 2021. It says, in case of crisis of conscience, does emotional intelligence helps to overcome same without compromising the ethical or moral stand that you are likely to follow? Of course, again, we'll fall back on what? We'll fall back on the domains. And in this particular case, we'll be discussing this particular self-awareness and self-management, right? It is crisis of conscience. It is within you. There is a conflict, right? That it is a personal dilemma that you are going through. And first, what you have to do, you have to resolve that personal dilemma. And how do you resolve the first that personal dilemma or that crisis of conscience? You do it, but by what? The very first step, yes, self-awareness. You should know about the kind of emotion that you are going through, right? You have to know the kind of emotional state you are in, right? The second is your self-management, right? The moment you understand, okay, like this is the particular emotive state I am in, then you have to manage yourself. And the moment you do that, you will be able to do what? You will be able to handle that particular emotion well. You will be agile in taking decision, right? You will be in the positive mindset, and most importantly, you will be accomplishing your goals, right? So these are the ways you can fight the crisis of conscience. The moment you do these 3 things, this will follow suit, right? First, you have stabilized yourself. You have stabilized the emotions that you have. Once you have done that, then automatically social awareness and relationship management can be handled.